The name of this monument is She Wouldn't Take Off Her Boots, and it's significant because this is inspired by a photograph of these four women who were actually getting ready to be shot by the Nazis, and they were instructed to take their boots off, but the woman in the middle, she just refused as an act of defiance against the Nazis.
These women there are 5 women in the monument. We have actually a child and 4 women, and this was a picture that was taken of them right before they were killed. And so in the middle, there's a woman, an older woman, and all of them, their arms are linked, who is wearing boots. Everybody else is in their underwear and no shoes on their feet, which was a requirement of the Nazis to completely undress because they actually then appropriated all of those belongings to send back to Germany. But she refused to take off her boots, at least in that moment. And that idea of you can still have dignity, you can still have a way to resist the dehumanization that was happening, is what really the monument is all about. How do we stand up against hate, and how do we do it and maintain humanity? We're the North Carolina Council on the Holocaust, and our mission is to educate students and teachers in the state of North Carolina about the Holocaust and the lessons we can learn from the past to help us today. Our organization paired with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction and created curriculum resources for every grade level in both of those subject areas. We also are tasked with professional development to provide that for the teachers of North Carolina to teach them how to use the resources, as well as other resources that we can bring in to teach about the Holocaust. Today we have our first in-person program this spring, where we have about 70 teachers here in Greensboro, North Carolina. We're learning about spiritual resistance in the Holocaust. And so we have a full day workshop here. Well, first, they're hearing from the son of 2 Holocaust survivors telling his parents' stories. They're also going to be learning about how to teach about spiritual resistance through film, documentary film in particular. So we're going to learn from 2 different organizations and 2 different stories of spiritual resistance. The Women of the Shoah and the She Wouldn't Take Off Her Boots Memorial in Greensboro. We're right here. We're going to actually be visiting that later on today. We're going to watch their documentary and do lessons related to it, so teachers have something to take right back in the classroom with them.
My name is Dr. Alex Kaur. I'm actually a podiatrist, but I'm also the son of 2 Holocaust survivors, Eva Moses and Mickey Kaur. My mother is one of the Mengele twins. There were 1,500 sets of twins experimented on by Dr. Joseph Mengele. My mom and my aunt survived because they were twins. My mom ultimately ended up in Indiana after meeting my father, also a survivor. And my mother ultimately found her path to healing by forgiving Dr. Mengele and the Nazis, etc. And this is way, I think, in my thought pattern is how she probably lived another 24 years of life, because she lived a healthier life. My father, from Riga, Latvia, was one of 4 boys, and similar to the story here in Greensboro, his mother saved his life. And so my dad eventually ended up in Buchenwald after 4 years of camp, and my father was rescued by an American GI from Terre, Indiana. And so both parents are survivors, and unfortunately my mother passed away during one of our trips to Auschwitz in July of 2019. And my dad passed away about 3.5 years ago after a long illness. So it's my obligation, but I think it's more of a blessing, not a burden, that I'm doing this, because I really want my parents' story to be told for future generations. So my mother did survive Auschwitz. She was there for 10 months. And I've gone back for now almost 40 years. I went back the first time in January of 1985. For me, it's been kind of a whole metamorphosis of emotions. I went back when I was 24 years old, and I knew where everything was. And so now I go back. I went back 2 months ago in January for the 80th anniversary, and now I hope to carry, my mom's legacy, and I hope that I can in some way affect positively future generations, so we know when bad things and bad people do bad actions, what can happen to the world. And I think it's just so important that these terrible memories can hopefully help the future.
The name of this monument is She Wouldn't Take Off Her Boots, and it's significant because this is inspired by a photograph of these 4 women who were actually getting ready to be shot by the Nazis, and they were instructed to take their boots off, but the woman in the middle, she just refused as an act of defiance against the Nazis.
When students come here, and very often if you're in a garden, you're going to march through a sculpture. You just walk right through it, or you stand for a moment. So focus. How do we get students to use this piece of public art, which is a vehicle for Holocaust education? How do we get them focused? How do we get them to engage with this sculpture? Ask them, why are these women standing there? Who are they? Ask them questions. What is the expression? Look at the photograph and why is the little girl standing here? And to start engaging with the sculpture. My hope is that each time one views a monument, one will become witness of exactly what the Nazi photographer was trying to do. To see them as others, to see them as cattle, to see them as insects. So we want the children, the students, adults, anyone that comes here, we have from Boy Scouts to churches, everyone comes to see this site, to see the story that they were real women, that these just didn't happen to those people. I was just reading the statistics of how many Americans don't believe the Holocaust happened and how many are Holocaust deniers. It's incredible. It's like 5 out of every 10. I was trying to get the ones from today. So the reality that this dark time in history where 6 million Jews were killed and then 6 million others, LTBG, Jehovah Witnesses, people Romas who were just another beautiful ethnic group that lived there, were killed. And to not understand or believe that history or to say that the Jews were to blame is something that we stop right now. And that's why you're here. It has to do with a journey to the death camps in Poland with March of the Living. And so my family's connected in terms of my mother's family's from Ukraine. They did not get killed in the Holocaust, but they were incredibly fearful Jews that were scarred by the history and the pogroms that they escaped from. Luckily that they were not involved in the Holocaust. But, as a Jew and as an artist, this was a chance to have a voice. And it just changed my life being there and also seeing the picture of these women that the sculpture was inspired by.
I wanted to get involved because I wanted to honor my aunt and my mother, who were the brave women who saved my life and my cousin's life. I wouldn't be standing here today if not for the bravery of those two women. They did extraordinary things. I could spend the whole day telling you what kind of danger they went through to save two little girls. It's very unusual that children my age survived. And I felt the monument was just very dedicated to education of Holocaust. I feel it's important because we can learn not only about what happened, this horrible time in history, but I think hopefully it helps us to look around us and see what's going on now, and hopefully we won't be going through this again.
I think it's really powerful, especially because finding out that it's here in a park that's really symbolic or representative of some Jewish families in Greensboro, and I think it's really powerful how close it is to Woolworths and the connections that you can make with the Greensboro 4. And I also think it's powerful that people can walk by it and just kind of take a moment to remember. Because that's the biggest thing, right? To be able to not let this happen again is to remember how you can just stand in your boots and stand for what's right.
It's a lot to process. I didn't realize that we had a monument this close to or within North Carolina. So really coming here and seeing the facial expressions and really seeing the photograph and then just imagining the experiences that they would have went through is just really, really hard to take in.
Oh, I think this monument is absolutely wonderful. It really it does exactly what we want it to do with the Holocaust education. It really does make you, especially if you don't even know anything about it, you walk up on it and you just ask, what's going on here? Why did this happen? And there's so many things that are set up to be able to answer those questions. It's wonderful.
I think the monument is a pretty powerful visual. It shows women standing together in the face of adversity. I also think that having the young lady on the left side there with kind of her head bowed, these women are standing up even though they know what their fate is going to be, and they know that they're not able to protect that child from that fate, but they're still standing up for a chance to just show you haven't beaten us, that we're still here and we are people, and you will recognize us, you will look in our faces.
This is incredible to have this close to us and have access to it, to be this close to my school, to be able to bring students out here and give them something besides just the classroom setting to actually represent the Holocaust. So it's going to be an incredible opportunity to bring them out here.
Why is it important that students learn this?
Well, as we've been talking about today, the idea that people still don't believe the Holocaust happened and the percentage of people that have never learned about the Holocaust or don't understand it, it's important to keep teaching it so that we understand these types of things here and these beautiful women that gave their lives for this event. Yes.
It's very moving, especially as a mom with a young daughter as well. It's kind of emotional just to see with the little girl here on the statue.
What is your message to your students when you go back and talk about the Holocaust?
The Holocaust is normally one of my favorite things to teach because I think it's so important for students just to know about. Like the speaker or the artist was saying, 5 out of every 10 people think the Holocaust didn't happen and wasn't real, and I think it's important students learn about it.
What is the connection to today?
Kind of along the same lines that we shouldn't forget about the Holocaust and that these people need to be remembered, and it could have been any of us.
I think it keeps people remembering what resilience, what strength, what courage can all mean in the face of absolute horror. I think it can inspire people to learn how to be better.
From a historical standpoint, it's always, we want to have empathy for our students, but it's always the unknown voices that we need to always remember and to talk about. So when I teach my students, there's always the truth, a different version, and then you have to find out all the different angles that happen in this historical event and not forget about those hidden voices that we sometimes forget about.
Empathy is a skill that doesn't come naturally for a lot of people, and when you can learn from other people's stories and experiences at such formative ages, I feel like it's an invaluable lesson that they can use for the rest of their life.
While the Holocaust is focusing on one event, this is happening right now. These are current. You can relate to the things that are happening now or that will happen in the future. I think it's important that they realize this and they recognize what's happening.
You have to know about what happened in order to enact change. If you don't know this information, if you don't know these stories, you're not going to be able to fight it off if it were to happen again. I think that drawing students' attention to how the Holocaust came about and what happened to people and the effects helps them to then look around the world and see how these things aren't gone necessarily. I always tell them nothing new is under the sun, right? We have a bent toward evil, and we have to just be able to stop it by knowing what happened and how to fight back, such as wearing boots and defiance.
The biggest message I want to send to my students is, even if you don't have the ability to physically resist, there are other ways. I think the biggest thing is just having them understand that it was everyday people that went through this. It was individuals who went through this, and it wasn't just it was multiple experiences that many people went through, and then connecting that and allowing them to hear those stories is really important.
What is the connection to today?
There unfortunately is still a lot of hate in this world, and there are people who think that is okay, and the connection is just that the resistance can help and resistance can make change. Doesn't matter how big, doesn't matter how small, but it can make change.
I think students oftentimes are very trapped in their social media worlds, and they don't necessarily look at the things around them that have gone before. And for kids to be aware that, this isn't just a picture in a book, it's actually real humans that this occurred or happened to, rather, that they weren't just these emaciated figures that we see, that they were mothers and daughters and sisters and wives and whatnot, maybe makes it more real for them. they have more of a connection to it.
Students learn this history need to learn this history for a number of reasons, including the fact that it's very important that we learn the patterns of the past so we can recognize them today and perhaps actually prevent the next genocide or prevent the hate that we see in the world all around us, combat it in some way. And that's actually the overarching goal, but the themes and the importance of the history and the stories that we read are also ways to help our students inspire themselves to overcome even their own challenges in their life.
This is a timely message today, but it's a timely message for any time because hate continues to be an underlying theme in our society throughout the world. And if we can remember these terrible things that happened, hopefully we can prevent the future and preserve the future.
Well, we actually have a web presence, so we have a website with NCDPI, but we also have a website out there for teachers. Just Google North Carolina Council on the Holocaust and they'll both come up. We also align ourselves with other organizations like the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington and Echoes and Reflections, as well as Facing History in ourselves. So we work together with other entities, but all of those resources are online and free for teachers.